that were cemented in it. And I
So,
But my main goal was to work for Allied.
Mike says we're ready.
I want to get steel workers.
2 Chronicles 35. We're going to read 1 through 6 and then 16 through 19. Okay.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't where else.
All right. Let's offer a word of prayer, and then we will begin chapter 35, verse 1. Dear Father, Lord, we're grateful always, Lord, to be here in your house. Lord, we do thank you for the rain, and Lord, that help us, Lord, just to not be negative and have an attitude that, oh, we didn't get enough. We know that, Lord, you take care of us, and we are grateful for everything, even small blessings. We thank you, Lord, for those that we receive, and we ask that, Lord, just that you would help us, Lord, to lean upon you, have faith in you. Thank you, Lord, for your word, and we pray that you would open our hearts and minds, your spirit would help us to learn and see these things, these lessons that you have for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Verse 1, Josiah celebrated Passover to the Lord in Jerusalem, and Passover lamb was slaughtered on the 14th day of the first month.
And he set the priests in their offices and encouraged them in the service of the house of the Lord.
Then he said to the Levites who taught all Israel, who were holy to the Lord, put the holy ark in the house which Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, built. It shall no longer be a burden on your shoulders. Now serve the Lord your God and his people of Israel.
And prepare yourselves by your fathers' households and your divisions, according to the writing of David, king of Israel, and according to the writing of his son Solomon.
Each corps will assist particular clans of the people who bring in their offerings to the temple.
Okay, 6.
Slaughter the Passover lamb, create yourself, consecrate yourself, and prepare the lambs for your fellow Israelites. Do what the Lord commanded through Moses.
Verse 16.
So at the time the entire service of the Lord was carried out for the celebration of the Passover, and the offering of burnt offerings, on the altar of the Lord, as King Josiah had ordered. 17.
All the Israelites presented in Jerusalem celebrated the Passover and the festival of unleavened bread for the 7 days.
The Passover had not been observed like this in Israel since the days of the prophet Samuel. None of the kings of Israel had ever celebrated such a Passover as did Josiah with the priests, the Levites, and all Judah and Israel who were there with the people of Jerusalem.
This Passover was celebrated in the 18th year of Josiah's reign. Okay, so I'm going to jump here for a second. I'm just going to do kind of get out of order here, but what does observing Passover have to do with us today? Because that's the thing, this is one of those things, a lot of people think about, oh, we're Christians, New Testament, this is all stuff from,
The Last Supper with Jesus was the Passover.
Okay.
So it's a prelude to the resurrection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody ever, and that's the thing, that not being Jewish ourselves, whatever, we really, even reading the New Testament, we miss out on a lot of stuff. Anybody ever watched I think a few of us have watched the observance of the Seder, Seder observation. Yeah, we had, think Moms and Eva's, Anthony has watched that. Okay. That's the thing, the Passover, a lot of people just think about, okay, the Passover, Israelites smeared blood on their doorposts, and death angel passed over, and then we got this meal that supposedly that they would observe every year to remember and commemorate that event, passing over of a death angel. Okay. So by the time, like say, we get to Jesus' day, and like I said, if we mentioned anybody's ever watched, observed, and or taken part in a Seder, which is that's the Passover meal, the Seder, we see there's a lot more to it than just, okay, got some roasted lamb and unleavened bread, okay, that's it. No,
The
it's
bitter
a
herbs,
lot more, huh?
the bitter herbs,
Bitter herbs, roasted egg, the leg of the bone,
Yeah.
shank bone of the lamb, whatever, all those things, and they all have symbolic meanings. And Jesus, this was the meal, and it wouldn't be like say all we read about is okay, the bread and the cup, okay. Which I'll say, of course. Why does observing the observing Passover have to do with us today? Yes, it was that meal, last meal with Jesus, and if you want to think about it, this is a type of Passover meal that we observe today. But this is the thing we realize: all those other components would have been there with Jesus, and actually we learned that. Like I say, we read in the New Testament, read about where he passes the cup. In the meal, there's actually 3 cups. This cup of wine or grape juice, or what would have been a form of wine, actually was three different cups that were passed, and it was that one particular cup that Jesus, which was, it's significant that he picked that particular cup to pass amongst themselves. One of the neatest things, coolest things, and like I said, I think I've probably have shared with before, but we learned when we actually did the Minister Alliance, decided we wanted to portray one, and we did a couple of years in a row, 2 or 3 years in a row at the Wichita Baptist Church, because they had the facilities that would accommodate that. But I understand though, even then, us trying to go by the directions that you're supposed to is still not even as the same and as significant as if you see Jewish people actually observe it. It's even deeper and more meaning to see them do and observe it. But one of the things that the symbolism, and like I say, we can't help but believe that God was involved in the orchestration of all of that. So he breaks the bread, and it's called the afikomen. So what he did was, we've got some back there, but the matzah. And what you did was, this is the way the Passover is supposed to be observed. You take a sheet of matzah and you break it in half, and you take one of the halves of the pieces of that matzah and you wrap it in a napkin, and then the host hides it somewhere in the house. The other half is that part that gets distributed to the people at the dinner. Okay? Now, that's the actual piece of matzah that Jesus used when he broke it and said, "This is my body given for you," whatever. But we have to stop and remember, there was half of that same sheet of matzah he wrapped up in a napkin and he hid it somewhere. And what you were supposed to do, usually when you had kids, it was a little bit of a game to go like a hide and seek, go find that hidden piece of matzah. Okay? And that piece is called the afikomen, which translates into dessert. It's like pie or cake, dessert. Okay? So we can get the symbolism. This piece of matzah he breaks and he says, "This is my body," but amazingly likes to talk about the resurrection, prelude to the resurrection. Part of that sheet that he says is my body, he wraps it up in a napkin, a shroud, and hides it away. Only to be brought back, like say, to be found, as like say, part of it to be found and be brought back to the meal, okay, which symbolizes the resurrection. And it's called the dessert. Everybody ever hear the story about this? It's actually a true story. I think it was a lady down in Texas that wanted to be buried with her fork. Oh, I got a couple of people like, what? Never heard that. True story. A lady down in, and she had left instructions for her pastor and her funeral director that when she died and she was in a coffin, everybody gonna come up for viewing. She wanted a fork in her hand. And they were like, what? And she wanted to say, she basically told the pastor, I want you to, here's the deal, I want you to explain that to the crowd so they will understand and get it. She said, in church for a lot of years we did fellowship dinners, and, whenever we would, like say, get ready, everybody had ate the main meal of the fellowship dinner at church. The ladies in the church would come around and talk and tell you, save your fork. Hold on to your fork, save your fork. We knew automatically that meant that something is coming up, which was dessert. And because it's a fork, it wasn't going to be anything like pudding or anything like that. You need a spoon for the fork. Like maybe cake or pie. Something really good. And she wanted people, that was her testimony to the people at her funeral, with a fork in her hand, to let them know, I'm anticipating and waiting for the dessert. The best is yet to come. The resurrection, and she understood that was her message to everybody. Best is yet to come. The dessert is coming. Interesting, like I say, Jesus uses that piece of matzah, the afikomen, the dessert, in the Passover observance that he did that night before he was betrayed and led to crucifixion. Okay. So, what does observing Passover have to do with us today? A lot. And that's the thing. It would do us well not to look more deeper into it. There's a lot more into it, a lot more symbolism that God, like I say, put into it that over a lot of years we missed. We missed a lot, And so there's a lot more. So the Josiah, the lesson is all about ritual versus ritualistic. Okay? And he mentions ritual. Some people see a ritual as a tedious formality, ceremony that bears little relevance. I caught that word relevance because that's our Wednesday night. Little relevance to reality. Going through the motions. And I kind of earmarked that because I'm thinking that's the thing. As on Wednesday nights we've been talking about relevance. See, the world sees what they think about church as the observance of all these rituals. And they see those rituals that has nothing to do, no meaning for us today, and nothing to do with what's going on in our lives and society and today. But as he mentions here, think about rituals aren't celebrations of birthdays, anniversaries, graduations, rituals in a good sense. It's a good thing. And he said, but ritualism, a bad thing. Rituals are there to help us remember the past as it explains the present and helps us plan wisely for the future. Regarding our worship of God, rituals only have meaning if they are followed with obedience to God. And so that's the point is this. If you're not all in, serving God, obeying God, then yes, rituals like communion are meaningless. You know, you are just going through the motions. Okay. Josiah, the boy king, 8 years old when he becomes king. And when he's 12 years old, this is the thing, this amazing thing about Josiah. We know the history. The nation, there's the nation of Israel, the northern kingdom, Judah, the southern kingdom. They've already encountered the Assyrians and all of that fighting and things that's been going on and taken into captivity. Actually, Judah will actually be taken into captivity by Assyria some years after Josiah. But this is the thing, part of the reason for the Assyrians is the wickedness of Israel, Judah, getting led into idol worship. Josiah, at 12 years old, goes through the land, and as it says here, purifies the land, renovates the temple. And if you read in between, all the scriptures in between what we didn't read, we see him going through, and actually there's the parallel version of what we read in 2 Kings 22 and 23. If you ever wanted to go back, basically, if you read it, it reads almost word for word what we read here in 2 Chronicles. But he goes through and it talks about basically every idol talks about it, cuts down the Asherim, all their buildings and structures of the idol worship, destroys them, and even all the priests of those false religions, he executes them. He basically just wipes all of that, wipes it all clean, gets rid of all of that. And that's at 12 years old. And then what we read about today is he's about, if I remember right, you guys that read the lesson, 60. I think this happens about 16 years old. So this is like 4 years after he's cleaned the land of all his idol worship and all the remnants of the idol worship. And this is the thing. What happens is, as he's going through there cleaning out God's house and renovating God's house, there's a certain priest that he has to go in there, and the priest finds what was known as the book of the law that had been given by Moses. They bring it. This guy reads it. He runs straight to the king, and he reads a section of that book to the king Josiah. And as it mentions here, he was shaken to his core. He recognized what it was. You know, this was God's law given by Moses, and he goes into action. Part of that action was what we're reading today, to re-establish the celebration of the Passover. Now I'm gonna jump ahead to, and just to kind of talking about some significance of what he did as far as the observance of the Passover. Several years prior to the King Hezekiah had observed the Passover, and he had offered all these animals in observance. Josiah, they sacrificed 41,400 animals as a part of that process. Outdone only by Solomon, who offered 142,000 animals. King Solomon, that was the establishment, that was the beginning of the temple. And the dedication of the second temple that was rebuilt, they offered only 700 animals. But King Josiah offers 41,400 animals. And I'm thinking, that is just that's an incredible feat. That's a lot of animals that they sacrificed. Okay. So, yeah, I can't even imagine. That's a lot of,
Well, it explains why they did that.
why is that?
Well, because it was a celebration for all the tribes of Israel,
Right.
Judea as well. And it was a fellowship offering, which means that they could serve the food to the people there. It was a 7-day feast.
Yep. 7-day feast.
So they fed the people with the fellowship offering, which is different from the burnt offering, which is only God's.
Yeah, and like I say, and this is in reference, like I say, we're kind of jumping here at verse 16 that we read, and he mentions, I was gonna get down to, he mentions there's 4 types. Like I said, not being Jewish, we probably wouldn't know or be aware. There were 4 types of blood sacrifice: burnt offerings, fellowship offering, sin offering, guilt offerings. And what he's talking about here is we're reading about 2 of the 4 types. The Passover animal sacrifice was a fellowship offering, and the difference between the 2 is burnt offerings. The entire animal basically was just burned up, reduced to a pile of ashes. Okay,
It's an offering to God.
right.
Yeah.
But these fellowship offerings, the difference was the animal was not completely burned up, and it provided meat for everybody. So that's the thing. 41,000. There was the population of the nation of Israel was a lot of people, so 41,000 animals to feed every. That's one big party. Okay, to feed everybody. Okay. But as he mentions here that Josiah re-establishing the Passover was an act of covenant renewal. So now let's think about, like I said, our original question is, what does the Passover meal have to do with us today? Think covenant. We have a covenant with God. Okay? And we know a covenant is a pact or a treaty or a
Binding agreement.
a binding agreement, contract. That's the word I'm trying to think about. Contract with God. Okay, God, here's what you say you'll do for us, and here's what we're going to do for you, kind of thing. And this was a renewal of this agreement between them and God. Like I said, Hezekiah was the one that had celebrated it. This thing has not been celebrated since Hezekiah, and which was a lot of years. A lot of years that went by since they had last observed the Passover. Mentions the 14th day of the first month, which we're talking about late March, early April. Points the priests to their duties, encourage them in the service of the Lord's temple. He makes a comment here, and we don't want to jump too far off track here, but he said, a lot of people, I guess, look with great skepticism at church-state combinations today, but not so in ancient Israel. This is the thing we know, going back to the Old Testament, God made the point, not just once, but a few times. He was their government. That's what it was supposed to be. That's what he intended. God was the government. There was no such thing as separation of church and state. He was the government. Okay. All right. So he mentions about encourage them. Can also be translated strengthening. Okay, encouragement. So how can people encourage somebody that's devoted to full-time ministry? That's their question, not mine. Okay, good. I was going to say, this is them. They're asking this question. Okay.
Well, for one thing, come and be in attendance.
Okay, come, be here. Okay, that's an encouragement always. Yeah.
And to let them know that we appreciate them.
They need your attaboys.
Attaboy.
Yeah, let you know that we appreciate
Okay.
you.
And I will just say, to your credit, the church here has done that on a regular basis. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay.
Pitch in, can't do it by themselves.
Participate, yes. Don't just come, but then, yeah, do. Let me, hang on a second.
It's okay.
Let me just tell you, Bob, if he is watching, able to watch, oh, he hadn't heard from you yet? You may, before it's over. Earlier this week, get a phone call from him. He's asking about, well, how's Vicky? You know, how's whatever, you know, and I'm just kind of filling him in. And anybody, you got anybody else that maybe just needs a phone call or whatever? And I said, yeah, we talked about a couple people. And he said, that was his thing. I'm in the hospital, but I feel like I can make phone calls, check on some people. And he said, I know you're busy. I would like to make some phone calls, check on some people for you. I was like, thanks, Bob. Yeah. You know? Participate, yeah, get involved, do whatever that means. It means a lot of stuff. All right. So, how can you encourage volunteers where he talks about non-paid staff members, or in other words, you? How can you encourage lay people, if you want to think about it in that way? How can we encourage them?
I'll let them know that their efforts are appreciated in their own track and pitch in with them as well.
Okay.
Like we got Bob involved. Said, hey, we need you help serve the community. And that activated him. He said that's what he needed. He needed to be involved.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, like I say again, yeah, help out. Yeah, like I say, there may be somebody else that's, like I say, okay, so as an example, like I say, Nancy's got an arts and crafts class. I don't know, she might have needed a little help. Did you have any help yesterday?
No, but I had a small group because there's several that couldn't make it.
Okay. Let me just say though, I'd say, I guess I anticipate, I guess it would have been probably not, not a large group that was there yesterday, but how many times though you're back there and working on decorating, and we get a lot of people have jumped in, put on tablecloths, help put up stuff on the tables, or even taking stuff off the tables and stuff. Yeah, that's one way to be an encouragement. Jump in and help out. So, any other?
Just tell them how much you appreciate them.
Okay, just let them know. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, one of the ways to encourage, whether it be paid staff or volunteers, pray for them. That's a big one. Pray for them. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about some of our ministry groups, missions, and some of our Bible colleges, that we get correspondence from them on a regular basis, but when they it's basically an appeal letter for we've got this project going on and we need some help, financially, whatever. But I always appreciate those that always make a point to mention. But if you can't send money, we covet your prayers. And I always thought I always appreciated that, that sentiment is like, you might not be able to help financially, but prayer is important. We need prayer. So, okay. So he said to the Levites that had been consecrated to the Lord, and he makes mention all priests are Levites, not all Levites are priests. Okay, I don't know if everybody realized that. The tribe of Levi, not everybody that was a member of the tribe of Levi were selected to be priests. But they were expected to be teachers and guides, and to lead the way in being personally consecrated to the Lord, consecrated being set apart as holy. Okay, so if you read books of Deuteronomy and all those, and you will see that, like say, God in a lot of his instructions on a lot of things, how he sets that tribe aside. For instance, as an example, all the tribes basically inherited land. The tribe of Levi did not. And the part of the reason is because God expected all the other tribes basically to provide for them. And because he considered them set apart as a holy group of people. Okay. But he said, put the ark in the temple. It is not this. The NIV says it is not to be carried about on your shoulders. I like what version is it, Scott? You have that you were reading out. What version?
It's the New King James.
New King James version, and I like the way because it makes more sense. It talks about it shall not be a burden on your shoulders anymore, which is I think more accurate because he makes a mention here about that. He makes reference to the event where we know they were carrying the Ark of the Covenant on the cart. They hit a bump in the road. It starts to teeter-totter, and the guy, the guy, I can't think of his name, reaches his hand to steady it, and it gets zapped. Okay. And it makes a point, and God makes a point to King David. David gets mad about that. God, he was just trying to be respectful to your ark, and you strike him down dead. David's mad, and God makes the point. It's like, here's the deal: you did not follow the instructions that I had given a long time ago, and if you would have, it never would have happened. And that was that the Ark of the Covenant was only to be carried. There's rings that were made into it for a reason, to put poles through it, so that the priests could carry it on their shoulders, holding these poles. Okay, and the lesson writer is here talking about, because he's thinking about from the NIV, not to be carried about on your shoulders. That must have been a confusion. But that's the thing. My point is what he's saying is, well, that's what I got out of it when I read it in the New American Standard Version. Agrees with the New King James Version. The translation is it's not going to be a burden anymore on your shoulders. In other words, you're going to put it in God's house. Nobody's going to have to carry it around anymore. It's there. Okay, I think to me that makes much more sense. What he's trying to say there. The ark wasn't, like I say, for them. The ark was necessary for the complete reformation of temple service. It represented the presence of God. It was they call it his throne. And then it admonishes them now, serve the Lord your God. Prepare yourselves by families. In other words, organize yourselves. And we know that the priesthood rotated service. Everybody realizes, because there was like several hundred priests, and they had a schedule that by group, this is the group that's going to be able to serve. And we know through the New Testament that there was by casting lots to decide out of this big group of guys that's going to be working and helping in the temple, who's gonna actually be the one that's gonna actually get to go into the actual holy place to take care of the bread and all the stuff that's inside there. And that's where we get the lot fell on John the Baptist's father. And that's why he got in. And it quite literally, it was like, for most of those people that were priests, Israeli priests, to be able to go actually into the temple itself, for a lot of those people, was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And they looked upon it as a real honor to be able to be chosen to go actually and do that, take part in that service there, actually in the temple itself. Okay. So, preparation. How do you prepare yourself to be attentive to God's direction during worship services? What do you do after you get here to make sure you're paying attention?
Coffee.
What's that? Coffee.
You have to have the right frame of mind.
A right frame of mind. Okay.
Eliminate the distractions.
Okay. Eliminate distractions. Okay. I think that was the next question. No. That was it was in the book here. Is your print smeared in your books?
Mine's not.
Okay. Mine out for some reason. I guess it's like the ink got smeared in this one. And all I know is it talks about how do you deal with distractions. So, okay, that's a good question. So you're in church. I guess what kind of distractions can happen in church and worship?
Children.
Kids. Okay.
Telephones.
Huh?
Telephones.
Telephones.
The garbage you bring into the service from your mind, your word, the things you got to do, burdens that you're trying to deal with.
What you're having for lunch? Yeah.
Oh, the pot roast cooking and
Yeah.
yeah.
That that's always been the preacher's jokes about trying to encourage the ladies about the roast is gonna be okay. They're worried about it's gonna be burned up.
Especially when the smell is coming from back in the
Oh, baby.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's gonna be a big distraction, Fellowship dinner day, yeah, I'm having a hard time staying focused. I think about the Bud Clapp, who was our professor and started Edmond Christian Church. And we were just up at Edmond last weekend. I think they've changed. I think the name of the church has changed now. I don't know. But anyway, but when they started the church, I'm thinking about, you talk about distractions, how do you deal with distractions? When they started the church, they met, and there was a lot of us, because Bud was our professor, and there was a lot of us that just attended his church as he started Edmond Christian Church, and it started in a motel. When you very first go in, I don't even think it's there anymore, when you very first get actually into Edmond, there's a big giant car dealership right there on the right-hand side of the road. And then there was a motel right there, just as you're getting into town. And so what they did was they allowed the group to meet in the banquet room right off the motel had like a little cafe, restaurant, whatever. We got to meet in the banquet room. The young adult, the young adult college age Sunday school class, we met in the bar. That was fun. Pull up a bar stool. We're gonna have Sunday school. That was fun. But anyway, they're in the banquet room. They're like I say, the motel's getting. I mean, they're serving breakfast and get ready for dinner. And we were right there next to, like I say, next to the kitchen, and there was a window. There was a window right there I remember on the left-hand side. It was an open window, and the guy that was washing dishes, and then in the beginning he had his radio. He's washing dishes. He got his radio on, and they had Bud had to go talk to the hotel management, tell them, could you possibly maybe turn that off while we're trying to have, and so, okay, he did, but at the same time, though, he's washing dishes. Silverware, the whole time, and, we just did church, Well, the funny thing was, when they finally got their new building up there on North Edmond, and the way that building's designed, you had a door, but actually, it was just basically a long hallway from this door to that other door behind the baptistry. So it was just basically a large corridor, long corridor that went right behind the baptistry. They're having a dedication service of the building. And Bud's up there talking about, thank you everybody for coming and dedicating to blah, blah, blah. And there were some ornery ladies in that church that got one of those big aluminum roaster pan, whatever, the shallow one, whatever, the big aluminum, and filled it up with silverware. And right in the middle of his, he starts giving his thank you everybody for coming, gonna dedicate the building. They start, he just stops and just shakes his head. He had nobody. He just had a good sense of humor, a real dry sense of humor. He's like, man, I thought we were gonna get away from all that. And of course, everybody had a big laugh, and we went on with the dedication service. But distractions, some of them, obviously like that, we couldn't help. So what do you do? It was unrealistic for us to expect the dishwasher guy, nope, can't do your job. Nope, can't do that. So
Sometimes you just have to ignore it. Tune it out.
Yeah,
Just
how easy is that?
Just like when we have our adult night out, sometimes it's very noisy, and we just have to really concentrate on what Regina's giving us.
Okay, that's a good word. Concentrate. How many people think about, as part of the preparation process, is that, okay, when I get in there, I'm going to have to make myself concentrate and focus. Okay? But are there, and I guess that's part of the preparation process, part of what you can do with distractions is, I think Sam mentioned frame of mind. How easy is it for us to put ourselves in the right frame of mind?
Takes great effort.
Takes great effort sometimes. Depends on what's going on in your life.
Practice.
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 Right.
Practice. Okay, prayer? Yeah.
It's going to be easier for some.
Okay.
Those with problems like ADD, ADHD, it is harder for them to tune out distractions.
One of the things that, and I anticipate probably, it may be one of those things that churches will evolve. It may evolve, or I think it depends on if you have some of those people in church, whatever. But Gerald Joslin's daughter, Joy, who's I don't know if she still works for the Thunder or not, but shared with us, and the reason why they had her sharing all this stuff with us was with what they were doing, public relations with Thunder, was how it could apply to churches. And one of the things that the Thunder did, and I don't know if everybody, but just learning through Gerald Joslin's daughter, that the Thunder actually has been some real innovators as far as the sporting events, and they're talking about all sporting events, football, baseball, basketball, whatever. Their philosophy is that we can't guarantee you that we're going to win games, but what our aim and goal is for you to have the very best experience you possibly can while you're here with us. Public relations. We want you to have a good time, even if we lose a game. We want you to have a good time. one of the things they did, like I said, they were doing some things, and the first to do some things other teams did begin to follow the Thunder was they got to thinking about autistic people coming to ball games. And boy, what to talk about noise in a ball game and what that does to an autistic person. And so what they did was they created some special rooms for them where they have their own space, and it's kind of like it's made where the walls were designed to cancel out all that crowd noise and stuff. So they could actually go in and have a good experience. It's not overwhelming. They were the first ones to do that. And so, yeah, think about church. That's a good point. Autistic person comes to church. You know, well, how would they be able to, you know, focus and pay attention and get, you know, have a good experience while they're here? All right. So anyway, a lot of what he's talking about is just some directions, instructions, you know, that he gives to them. Slaughter the lambs, consecrate yourselves, prepare the lamb. It mentions in Exodus chapter 12 and Deuteronomy 16. People actually slaughtered their own lambs, but in Hezekiah's Passover, the Levites did that. So they carried it out, they offered the burnt offerings, and they observed the feast of unleavened bread. These two events actually are back to back. A lot of people get them confused. Passover happens when as soon as it's done, they go right into the feast of unleavened bread. So he mentions here about a plan to set aside 7 days to take up a spiritual practice that would strengthen your faith. I'm thinking, let's just make it more, throw out this whole idea of 7 days. Just think about a plan you can devise to take a spiritual practice that would strengthen your faith. What would that plan be? What would it look like? I forgot, I left the T out of the word practice there. Oh my goodness. Okay. Spiritual practice that strengthens your faith.
Daniel prayed 3 times a day.
Daniel,
Same time,
okay.
Same place.
Same time, same place. I always mention Don Dwelt, his, how to have a quiet time, how to have a personal devotion time with God, a quiet time with God. And that was one of the recommendations he always mentioned in his book and in his classes that he did at Ozark. If you're going to have a prayer time with God, always make it the same time every day. Whether it's in the morning, night, or whatever it is. Like a schedule. And if you're going to pray, you can pray all throughout the day, but we're talking about that special time, and it's just that time, that when you're in your prayer closet time. Make it the same time every day. And that's what they found out. So if you try to do it randomly, guess what? It's not very long, and then you're not doing it anymore. If you'll just make a point, like they say, 6 o'clock every morning, that's it. 6 o'clock every morning. We're good at that time. Any other ways that you can, a spiritual practice that strengthens your faith?
It's really tough. For me, anyway, it's been making sure that I'm not the sponge. He didn't need to always give it towards me. He needs to go out.
Okay.
Trying to find a way to encourage somebody or say a good thing or appreciate what they've done. Or,
Yeah.
Ask them if they need prayers or whatever.
How many people actually, I think most people just it's kind of like, wait for an opportunity. How many people actually make a point to say, okay, today, who can I encourage? Hey, who can I encourage? What can I do? What can I do to help them? And basically, in other words, making a point day after day. I wanna do something, I wanna do a good deed today.
Yeah, a lot of it's pretty mundane. I mean, we live in a world that's pretty hardcore these days, and just making it a point to let folks know not everybody's hardcore. Not everybody is, tense and nervous and scared, reactive. It's actually okay to say hello and good morning, and this is a great day. When somebody asks you how you doing, you tell them it's never been better, and all that stuff. It's like it always catches them by surprise, and you do it on purpose to let them know that God's got us. He's got all of us. He's never not been in control.
Yeah. Okay, so next week, Exodus 15.
The other thing about that is take time to listen.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen. Listen.